This is mine now.
Oh, okay. Hello, friendos. This is Chain, your Commander-in-Chief, welcoming you back to Chain of Commander for this month's visit to the recruitment office. I figure we're going to stick with our month of spoop theme and talk about some spoopy guys. Now, before we get into this, I do ask if you end up enjoying this sort of content, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button below. I'd love to have you folks join us going forward. There's also that like button. If you like it, you like it. Hit the like button to show it. And if any of these cards speak to you on a deck building level, we have a TCG player affiliate link in the description below, so feel free to use that to purchase those cards. It won't cost you a single cent more, but it will help out the channel. All that said, let's have our guest introduce himself today.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm here to discuss my commander deck today.
And what commander might that be?
It is Gonti, Lord of Luxury.
Gonti, Lord of Luxury. And tell us, what does Gonti, Lord of Luxury do?
All right, Gonti is a black commander. He's 4 mana, 2 black, and 2 colorless. He's a 2/3 with Death Touch. When Gonti enters the battlefield, you choose a target opponent. You look at the top 4 cards of that opponent's deck. You pick one of them, and you exile them face down, and put the other 3 on the bottom of your opponent's deck in any random order. At any time, you could normally cast that spell. You may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast the spell.
And why did you pick this guy? Out of all the guys, out of all the mono black commanders you can choose from, why this one?
Playing with my opponent's cards has always been, like, in my mind, the best way to play Magic. You're using your opponent's resources to beat your opponent. It's fun, it's interactive. Your opponents usually aren't a big fan of it, but me as a player, I love it.
All right, so that can make sense why you'd want to play this guy. I know that other decks like Sense Triplets and stuff like that kind of do very similar things, but I feel like Gonti, nobody gets the hate. Gonti doesn't get the hate that Sense Triplets gets. No,
Nope.
people can handle a Gonti. He can handle a Gonti, and so like on a scale of 1 to 10. I know power level subjective, but where would you put your Gonti deck? Kind of like where on that scale?
I think it's about a 6 to a 7. It's really hard to be up there with, like, these super incremental value commanders, especially when they're only 1 color. I think outside of, optimized rocks, stuff like Mana Crypt and Chrome Mox and the other really expensive ones, I think this deck is about as optimized as it can be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Gonti doesn't lead himself to be a super powerful commander, but he's super fun, you say?
Yes.
Okay. So if you value fun over power, Gonti might be for you. So how does this deck win? How do you go about winning? You can't just play your opponent's cards. You got to have a game plan. What's your game plan here?
Most of your rock solid win cons come from the black mana sink cards, stuff like Torment of Hailfire, stuff like Exsanguinate. Your secondary win cons are trying to play Grey Merchant of Asphodel. And I do play Rise of the Dark Realms because this deck tends to go really long. And that card really late in the game usually can win if it resolves.
Yeah, I have a couple decks with that in it, and it definitely can start taking over the table if people don't do anything about it. So, other than Rise of the Dark Realms here, Tormented Hellfire, stuff like that, what are some of the key cards that you're looking to have in this deck? What do they do for the deck?
Well, I like to play a lot of Gonti-esque cards that make my Gonti Lord of Luxury better. Stuff like Conjurer's Closet, Panharmonicon, these artifacts that help generate value. My version of the deck actually plays a lot of incidental, good enter the battlefield black creatures, which makes the rest of these cards even better. Stuff like Sepulchral Primordial, Puppeteer Click, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, as I mentioned, to try and win the game. If you blink Grey Merchant of Asphodel 2 times in a turn, pretty late in the game, you're probably just going to win.
That's true. So, outside of that, then, what about things like you like kind of playing your opponent's card? Do you have Praetor's Grasp or anything like that in there?
I try to avoid a lot of the gimmicky cards. I don't play Praetor's Grasp. It's just never made the cut for me. I think in a mono black deck, trying to search out specific cards from your opponent just doesn't seem to work very well because your lines in your deck are so constricted on what you can do. I also don't play cards like Nim Deathmantle or Supernatural Stamina, which are like these cards that synergize really well with Gonti, but only synergize with Gonti.
Okay, so you're trying to have a game plan that lets you play the deck. For some reason, if you can't get Gonti out, you can still do what your deck wants to do.
Yep.
All right, other, like you said, Praetor Scraps didn't make the cut. Were there any other cards that just didn't make the cut for you?
In Mono Black, it's kind of hard to decide what's cuttable and what's not. I found that, especially in Commander, Mono Black tends to be one of the more linear colors when it comes to the mono deck building. You're always going to play stuff like Damnation. You're always going to play stuff like the single target removal spells like Go for the Throat and Dark Ritual. Pretty much every creature I play in the deck is in almost every single black deck in Commander. In terms of stuff that don't make the cut, I think a lot of, like I said, these specialty cards that try and just interact with Gonti don't make it into the deck, though. I also don't play, like I said, I don't play any expensive mana rocks. This is a cheap deck, and I try to keep it that way.
All right, now what are some cards that you haven't even tried yet that you might have considered? I know that this year's been a whole bunch of new stuff been coming out, but nobody's really been able to get their hands on it. What cards recently have you wanted to try, or maybe take a gander at?
A card that is a Gonti support card that I've never actually played is Dead Man's Chest. I've just never gotten a copy of it. I keep forgetting that card exists because no one plays that card, but it synergizes really well with Gonti, so I've never actually played it. Some of the other cards that I really wish I could be playing are just some of the more expensive black cards in the format. Obviously, I wish I could play stuff like Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. These cards that I just don't have in the deck for financial reasons. But I would play if I did have them.
Now, you brought up Dead Man's Chest. I think some of my viewers who have seen my Ephemia deck list from earlier this month would know that I'm pretty high in that card, because that card is indeed a lot of fun. Being able to play your opponent's cards leads to each game being different. Despite you saying your deck has a lot of the same cards a lot of other mono black decks would have, how does yours kind of break away from that? You playing your opponent's cards allows you to have a different play experience.
Yeah. When I Gonti my opponent, it's pretty hard to decipher what the correct card to choose is and what the correct card to choose isn't. It's a lot of state-based things. What does the board look like? A lot of times you're going to be looking at like 3 lands and 1 barely playable card, and you're going to feel bad. Other times you're going to look at 4 cards. All 4 of these cards do something at some stage in the game. And you need to pick the one that does the most right when you need it. A lot of times you're going to pick a counter spell or something like that. Because you open yourself up to lines like this, you can play a little bit more loosely when you're trying to actually win the game. Your opponent's never going to play around negate if you took it from another player and you're playing a mono black deck. So you can just slam Torment of Hailfire and you can just be like, it's not going to get countered. And if it does, I actually have a counter spell.
So, can't argue with that. It adds a little bit of surprise, the element of surprise.
Yep.
To a lot of other decks. All right, other than that, is there anything else about this deck you want to talk about?
This deck's a lot of fun. It plays just like a mono black control deck would in pretty much any format across Magic the Gathering. It's snowbally. All your cards are so good in a vacuum most of the time compared to what your opponents are playing, that even though you're playing this like mono-colored deck that doesn't have all these super expensive commander cards in it, it doesn't mean that you can't have a good game of Magic while trying to beat your opponent. Nothing feels better than not owning a Mana Crypt, but playing a Gonti on turn 3 or 4 and taking your opponent's Mana Crypt to put on the battlefield for you. It's a lot of fun, and I love this deck.
That's what we want to hear. We want to hear people who have fun playing their deck. All right. All that said, look at the camera there. It sounds like you did most of the legwork already, but I want you to give the viewers one primary pitch as to why they should play Gonti.
All right. Okay. So If you want to play a deck that doesn't require a lot of money, but lets you play with a lot of money, because you're going to be playing against people with their $2,000 commander deck, then you should play Gonti, Lord of Luxury. You slap it onto the battlefield, you say, oh, what's this? It's a time twister? And then you just win.
By casting Time Twister.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Gonti, Lord of Luxury. Maybe that's now on your radar as your next commander, especially if you're looking for somebody in mono black, and my Ephemia deck for some reason just didn't scratch your itch. Shame on you. Don't forget, today is the last day to get your comments on the video from a couple weeks ago, our Stacks Artifacts video, to enter the giveaway for this, the Subjective Reality Commander 2018 deck with Aminatu. I will never say her name right. So remember to get back to that video there. I'll just toss a link in the description so you guys can just link to it, watch the video, answer the questions I ask, and that enters you into the tournament as long as you're also subscribed. Subscribe, comment. 2 steps. I think you guys can handle 2 steps. I hope. That said, thank you all for joining us today. If you're a Gonti player, let me know in the comment below how you build your deck. What cards do you think you got to include? Which cards didn't make the cut for you? Let's just get the talks going. Let's see how everybody else built their decks. I'd love to hear it. That said, thank you all for joining us today. I love having you folks around. Y'all just take care, all right? Say bye to the camera, Chris.
Peace out.